Words don't sound like what they mean. Dogs don't go around saying dog. And trees don't say anything. But there's something that breaks this basic rule of language, a word that sounds exactly like what it means. Well, two words. This is Kiki, and this is Bouba. But you already knew that, didn't you? It turns out basically everyone in the world knows this. In the 1960s, a psychologist showed these pictures to children in Tanzania, and they called them by the same names that you would. Isn't that weird? I started researching the Kiki-Bouba phenomenon about a year ago, and have become completely consumed by it. What I'm about to show you is something you won't see anywhere else. I've been down the rabbit hole. This Kiki-Bouba thing goes so much deeper than you can possibly imagine. It all goes back to the year 1929. A psychologist named Wolfgang Kohler ran a strange experiment. He showed people two images, and he asked, which of these is Maluma? Which is Tekete? 90% said this spiky thing was Tekete, and the round one was Maluma. I decided to try this experiment on my wife. She's never seen these before. I actually have no idea what's about to happen.
So for the first one, I would say Mamala, and the second one, Tataka.
At the same time, an anthropologist named Edward Sapir was running a similar experiment. He showed people pictures of tables and gave them two words, mill and mal. You already know where this is going. Everyone agrees that small tables are mill and large tables are mal. Kiki and Bouba first appear 72 years later. Two neuroscientists, Ramachandran and Hubbard, were trying to figure out why some people experience synesthesia, why a person might think a C sharp on the piano sounds blue or the number 5 feels red. They showed people these images and asked, which one is Kiki? Which one is Bouba? 95% of their subjects chose this one for Kiki and this one for Bouba. They immediately started speculating. This Kiki-Bouba thing wasn't just some weird quirk. They thought they might have discovered something fundamental about the way our brains are wired, with connections between the parts of the brain that process sound and the parts that process shapes. And they thought it might explain the evolutionary origins of language. But they couldn't explain exactly why we have these associations or where they come from. What is it about Kiki and Bouba? There's something going on here that's more than it seems. It isn't just these shapes. Look at these two aliens. Which one do you think is a foov and which one do you think is a krelch? If you're like most people, you think the foov sounds big and round and krelch sounds narrow and pointy. And it works the other way around too. We're more likely to describe these ambiguous shapes as round when we hear Maluma and sharp when we hear Tekete. You can even ask people to draw their own shapes for made-up words and they wind up drawing the same kinds of things. A horgus is big and round. A keeks is small and pointy. The question is, where does all of this come from? Why do I have such strong feelings about random shapes and words I've never heard before? And why do you agree with me? We're going to get to the bottom of this. But the more I research, the more I see the same idea coming up again and again, that the Kiki-Bouba effect might not be about language at all. Kiki-Bouba is about sound and shapes. These seem disconnected. Shape is visual, sound is auditory, but language already has a dimension of shape, writing. Maybe the real explanation for the Kiki-Bouba effect has been right in front of us the whole time. We just have to look at it from the right angle. The spikiest sounds in English all seem to have spiky letters, and the roundest sounds have round, bubbly letters. Maybe this whole Kiki-Bouba thing is just something we pick up when we learn how to write. I know what you're thinking. Didn't I say earlier that kids in Tanzania get the Kiki-Bouba effect too? They spoke Swahili. Also, 2.5-year-old children know about Kiki and Bouba.
Kiki-Bouba.
They don't know how to write. How is that possible? Well, it turns out that by the time kids are 2.5, they've already been exposed to English letters. They're printed on blocks, tiles, books. Letters are everywhere. It's impossible to avoid. Well, what about Swahili? The Swahili language is not even remotely related to English, but it does use the same alphabet. So even though Kiki-Bouba pops up all over the place, it might still have something to do with the way we write. To figure this out, we're going to need to find some more writing systems. The English alphabet is a mix of round and pointy letters, but some writing systems, like katakana, are all spiky, and others, like Thai, are super round. Very Bouba. Telugu has a very Bouba-looking alphabet. All the letters are round. So I asked the Telugu speaker whether these shapes look more like Bouba or Kiki.
I'll show you the first shape here, and you just tell me, just from your intuition and kind of as quickly as you can, whether it feels like a Kiki or a Bouba.
Kiki, Kiki, Bouba, Kiki, Bouba, Kiki, Bouba.
So it's not just English and Swahili, even Telugu has Kiki and Bouba. In fact, it seems to apply across languages with all kinds of writing systems. In 2021, linguists tested 25 languages with 10 different writing systems and found the effect in all of them. And you can even find the effect in people who don't read or write at all. The Himba live in northern Namibia, isolated from Westerners. Their language, Ochi-Herero, has no written form. A group of English psychologists visited their villages in 2013 to test the Kiki-Bouba effect. 82% of them had the exact associations we do. It's universal, whether you have a written language or not. Whatever this effect is, it doesn't come from writing. So if it's not writing, how do we learn that a Kiki is a Kiki? To find out, we're gonna have to go back to the beginning, to when you were a baby. The same year the English psychologists went to Namibia, a different group of psychologists in New York tested 4-month-old babies to see if they knew Kiki from Bouba. Infants can't talk, so you can't ask them which one looks like a Kiki, but you can figure out what they know by looking at what they pay attention to. If you show a 4-month-old picture like this and say Bouba, they'll spend longer looking at it than if you had said Kiki. They know something's not right about that. Even at 4 months old, they know that this spiky thing isn't a Bouba, it's a Kiki. How? How does a baby know this? Well, babies can't talk, but they do pay attention. And when we talk, they can see our mouths move. Maybe they're learning to associate sounds with mouth shape. When you say Bouba, you have to make some really round mouth shapes. Kiki is a lot more angular. Maybe this is how they're figuring it out. In 2024, 2 researchers in India compiled a list of made-up words on a scale from Kiki to Bouba. Then they recorded themselves pronouncing each word and analyzed their mouth shape. If this is the source of the Kiki-Bouba effect, we should see a strong correlation between the sharpness and roundness of the lips and whether the word sounds sharp or round. Bad news. There's no correlation at all. The Kikiest sounding words didn't have the widest mouth shape and the most Bouba didn't always have the most rounded lips. Kiki-Bouba isn't about what we see, it's about what we hear. This is where things get really weird. In 2024, scientists in Italy trained 3-day-old chicks, that's baby chickens, to walk behind a panel to find food. Once the chicks learned how to navigate the space, they added another panel. Now the chick had to choose between 2 panels, one with a spiky shape and one with a round shape. And while they navigated this new space, they would hear a word, either Kiki or Bouba. When the chicks heard Bouba, they went looking for food behind the round shape. When they heard Kiki, they went behind the spiky shape. I mean, it's not 100%, but they're not choosing randomly. They knew these shapes are Kiki and Bouba even though they've never seen them before and they've never heard those words. In fact, they've never heard any words. They're chickens. And it's not just chickens. Chimpanzees, monkeys, dogs, even tortoises seem to associate sounds and shapes. This isn't about language at all. It's not even about human cognition. There's something happening here, something deep in our evolutionary history, something almost universal among life on Earth. Something has been nagging at me from the beginning, a through line that may lead to the heart of this mystery: sound. There's only one way to get to the bottom of this. We have to build a Kiki and a Bouba.
Ready to go?
We're visiting the 3D print lab to create some 3-dimensional objects, a Kiki ball covered in spikes and a Bouba ball covered in bumps. We're going to analyze the sounds these objects make, and we're going to compare it to the acoustics of speech. While my objects print, I'm analyzing spectrograms of myself saying Kiki and Bouba. The spectrogram is actually a 3-dimensional way to look at sound. It shows the amplitude and pitch of the sound wave. These dark bands are formants. They're patterns of high-intensity sound clustered at different pitches. This pattern of formants is how we recognize speech. It's what makes an E sound different from an Ah. Let's focus on the second formant. The average value for the vowel in Kiki for somebody like me is about 2200 Hertz. Compare that to the vowels in Bouba. The little at the end of Bouba is around 1200 Hertz, and the oo is only 600 Hertz. What this means is that overall, the vowels in Kiki have a much higher pitch than the vowels in Bouba. And it's not just the vowels, the consonants also play a role in the shape of the sound. Part of how we recognize sounds like K and B is the way they interact with vowels. When a word transitions from a consonant to a vowel, the consonant changes the vowel formants. It gives the formants a kind of curve. B and P have the lowest transitions. They push the formants of the vowels down. K and G have the highest transitions. They push the formants up. The combined effect makes Kiki sound way higher pitched than Bouba. Question is, what does the shape of the sound have to do with the shapes of the objects? I've got my Kiki and my Bouba from the 3D printer and they look amazing. Look at this Kiki, it looks exactly like a Kiki. The question is, What does it sound like? We're going to do a little experiment. I'm going to roll these balls on this table, and we're going to record the sounds they make. And hopefully, we'll find out why things that look Kiki sound like Kiki. When we scan the spectrograms of the audio recordings, something jumps out. The round ball makes a lower pitched sound, and the sound is more continuous. Look at the spectrogram for the spiky ball. The sound is higher pitched and has big spikes in the waveform. The sound itself looks spiky. It looks like the spectrogram of me saying Kiki. And the sound of my round ball looks round, just like the sound of Bouba. The Kiki-Bouba phenomenon isn't about language, it's about the shape of sound itself. Low-pitched sounds feel Bouba. High-pitched sounds feel Kiki. We associate high pitch with things that are small, sharp, and move quickly. Low pitch is the opposite. We associate it with things that are big, soft, heavy, and slow. Kiki-Bouba is about connections between the shape of objects in the world and the sounds they make. Connections that we can use to communicate about the world. Big round things make big round sounds. Small pointy things make punctuated high-pitched sounds. This knowledge about the shape of sound is something we apparently know from birth, and we probably share it with every other animal that can see and hear. It's deep in our evolutionary history, and we're not the only ones using it to communicate. Frogs make a lot of noise, but they're communicating something important. They're attracting mates and threatening their rivals. And in both cases, they want their croaks to sound as deep as possible. Because frogs know, the lower the pitch, the bigger the frog. Crocodiles are the opposite. They listen to the calls made by their offspring and pay the most attention to the ones with the highest pitch. The higher the pitch, the smaller the baby crocodile. And the smallest babies need the most help from their parents. Wild chimpanzees in Ivory Coast use pitch in a different way. They signal each other when they find ripe fruit, and they change their pitch depending on the size of the tree. The chimps make high-pitched calls when they find fruit from smaller trees, and low-pitched calls for larger trees, just like Edward Sapire's experiment in 1929. Mill for small tables, mall for big ones. This might have been the jumping-off point for the evolution of language. Links between sound, shape, and size could have given our hominid ancestors the ability to assign names to things, to create the first words. This might have been the first step on the path to modern human language. Kiki-Bouba is like a fossil of our ancient brains, and it might help us reconstruct what the earliest languages sounded like. It might give us a glimpse of humanity's first words. And even though it's not really about language, its impact on the sound of language has turned out to be so much bigger than anyone thought. A study in 2016 analyzed basic vocabulary from 6,452 languages. That's almost every language on Earth. What they found is that the way these basic words sound isn't completely arbitrary. Words with the same meanings across all languages tend to have the same kind of sounds. Globally, languages tend to refer to nose with words containing N, stone with T, sand with S, round and red with R, and many others. This is just scratching the surface. It's becoming more and more clear that Kiki-Bouba is everywhere. Language isn't as random as we thought. It's shaped by connections between our brains and the physics of objects and sound that we experience every day. And it's the key to understanding some deep mysteries about why languages look the way they do, and even where language came from in the first place.